Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of HSP TV. I am your host, Barbara, and today I am joined by the wonderful Suzy Woo. And our topic for today is how to go from victim to victor. And this is all about surviving domestic abuse and coming out thriving, right? So I'm so happy that you are here today, Susie, to talk about this because this is not an easy topic. But sadly, lots of people are a victim of something like this. So with this, I hope to bring things more out in the open and to have people recognize themselves in it and maybe find a friend or help or whatever they need. So thank you for coming here today.
Yes, it's my honor. Thank you.
And so, of course, we pre-talked a little bit, and I know a little bit of your story, but it has not been easy, right?
Right. Yeah. And it takes a long time to get from victim to victor. There's a lot of soul searching and digging and going through, your own shadow work. Like, why was really my biggest question. What did I ever do so wrong to get what I was getting? And,
Yeah.
am I going to die like this? Like, I didn't see any way out. It's a dark, scary road.
Yes, I can imagine, and especially when there are kids involved, right?
Right. Yeah. Of course, it didn't start that way. It was, dating first, like 16, 17 years old, but it was a total of 22 years. And each time that I left and came back, we had another child. So we have three children. But that is also a statistic. I mean, it is 1 in 4 women, 1 in 7 men. And statistics show that it takes a total of 7 times of leaving and coming back and leaving and coming back before you either stay gone or be killed. And
Yes.
so luckily I didn't make it all the way up to seven, but I left and came back 3 times and then I married him. And then I pretty much wrote my own self off.
Yes. Maybe we can start a little bit at the beginning because if you had known what type of man he was in the beginning, like you knew at the ending, you would never have started the whole thing, presumably, right?
Right. That's exactly like pretty, because I've done a heck of a lot of studying on the whole topic and the dynamics of it now. And we fit that protocol exactly perfectly where I am the empath and he was the narcissist. But really, but prior to that, I came to understand I wanted to get on my father's radar. So I had both my parents, but my father was working all the time. And so I wanted to be on his radar. And that is the pattern. We all have that in our chart somewhere, or I talk astrology. We all have that somewhere as to a childhood wound, and that is also Chiron in your chart. And what I just didn't like I didn't get the flowers on Valentine's Day like the classmates do and all that kind of thing. So I was always kind of this oddball reject.
Mhm.
And when I met him, it was the knight in shining armor.
They can be really charming and kind and
Exactly.
considerate in the beginning, right? When they're trying to woo you.
Yes, and sweep you off your feet and put you up on a pedestal. And when you're not used to having any attention to all of a sudden this love bombing, I was, of course, sucked right in.
Right.
And what
And then
happens is
what
they eventually just kind of peel layers of you off like an onion until there's nothing left of you. And then they stomp on it. And, so it's like your friends. So you start making fun of my friends and why do you hang out with them and making fun of, or like my parents, like my mother, my family. And I was so blind. It really shook me, but I started to believe all this stuff that it was putting in my head. And
Mhm.
then that would end up meaning I make bad choices and even just everything. Nothing I could do was right. I used to love to go roller skating, and that was now, not for me or whatever. So it was like every single thing that gave me color, he took away and made me to hate that.
They are master manipulators and they have a way with words that is uncanny. And we are, in general, very open, very trusting. We want to see and believe in the good in people. And like you said, if you come from a background where you haven't known much attention or love or being cherished, then you're very vulnerable to someone who knows how to manipulate that to get you in the position that they want you to be, and that is sort of worshiping him as the one and only, or her. There is also the turnaround dynamic with a man with a narcissistic woman, but they make you worship them and sort of want to own you completely so that you cannot see anything different, want anything different, and are just really there for them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You brought a memory up to mind. So a few years in, I remember being kids, we still live at home. And
Mm,
so when I would go to his house, eventually what would happen is he would take my paycheck and my car and then go. I live in New York, so we live near Canada where all the strip clubs are. So he would take my check, my car, and go and see all the stripping people up in Canada. And I would just be left there by myself. And I just kind of felt like that old 1970s song, Alone Again, Naturally, like that was my theme song. And like, how is this ever okay? It was terrible.
yes. Yes, I understand that. But if you say you left him three times, then there were at least three different moments in the time where you felt like, I cannot do this anymore. I need to go. But you also went back. Can you shed some light on that dynamic?
Yes, the first time is when I was pregnant and our firstborn was just before my 21st birthday. And when that child was 6 months old, I had actually planned it out and then left. But he had so much control over me. He hunted down my friends, asked where I was, and my best friend at the time, he went to her and he said, "If you don't tell me where she is, I'm going to sink your truck in the bottom of Lake Erie."
Mm.
And I can tell you, if you drain Lake Erie, her truck is in it because she didn't tell. And but he always managed to find me. He would follow me and stalk me. And with that time, he vowed and promised and made himself cry and all of those kinds of things. And he said, "I want to be a family man. I promise I'll be a family man." And so I
Oh,
didn't want judgment. I didn't want everyone to say, "Well, she couldn't hold the family together," or she should. And so it's all the wrong reasons, at
mm,
21 years of age, you don't know what's going on. And so I wanted to believe that. And so I did. And then that, of course, each time got worse and worse.
yeah.
And then 2 years later, we had another child. And that was after time number two. And then the third time I left, geez, I don't know if I remember that one right now because I'm thinking I went back. Oh, yes. And then after I went back the last time, um, he really lost his marbles. We sat at the kitchen the one day and he stood above me, poking me like in the face, in the eye, and making himself drool and tremble and say, "If you ever leave me again, I'm going to kill your family and then I'm going to kill you." And I believed that he was crazy enough to do it. So that was the last time I left or anything. And
Mm,
then we got married. So, I don't even think like codependent doesn't even touch it. It was just extreme abuse.
yes.
Um, and I thought that I was going to die by his hands. That's what I mean when I say by then I wrote myself off.
Hmm. And there was no one you could turn to, no one you trusted enough, or the fear was just that strong that you didn't even consider it.
Right, because what happens is they strip you from your network,
Yeah.
when they make you doubt your friends and your choices, and it's all planted, it's all on purpose. So what's happening is they're burning away everybody that you once had so that you have no one and you're isolated and alone. And I was extremely monitored. I went to work and came home. I had absolutely zero social life. And I
Hmm.
was interrogated if I went to the store. Did anyone talk to you? Da, 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 da. And so to compensate for that, I would, if I needed to, if I was allowed to go to the store, I would scowl so that nobody would greet me because I would have to report that when I got home. And it was just all of this stacking up
Yeah.
to prevent this interrogation, which I could never win anyway.
Yeah.
It was,
Psychological warfare at the
oh,
best. Yeah.
big
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, that they take away everybody you could turn to, everybody that could stick out and help or things like that, so that you really have no place to go. You're cornered, you're stuck, you don't know what to do, and you're scared. And they
Very, yeah.
manipulate you to do things that they want that you are even scared to think of.
Right, right. And I had tried desperately. I had once told his mother when we were still dating before any children, he's
Mm,
getting all mad. I said, he's pulling my hair out by the roots. Will you give me a ride home? And so she drove me home, but it was never addressed.
no. No, and do you feel that it stems from trauma on his side, or do you feel it's
Oh,
just
of
the way he was
course. Yeah.
born?
Generational misogyny, generational alcoholism, the whole, the patriarch and everybody else needs to be quiet. That's
Yeah,
what he was raised with, and his father would beat him. And
yeah.
so, of course, that's just repeated. When one is made to feel helpless, they're going to control somebody else so that they can feel power.
Yes, there are lots of people who do that. So the one that's being bullied turns into a bully later. That's a
Yep.
well-known pattern indeed. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but eventually you did leave.
Yes, the final time I promised the kids that I wouldn't take them back. And by that time, the kids were 18, 16, and 4. Yeah, that's it. And what had happened is he was getting just way more extreme. I used to keep a calendar. I'd write a little happy face, sad face. I would gauge and measure, try to predict just all of the hurdles I tried to jump.
Mm,
Anyway, so what had happened is one Thursday morning, we were hustling and bustling for school and work. And our daughter, who was 16 at the time, she pulls me aside and she goes, I can't take living like this anymore. It's either him or me. And I just started trembling because I knew that she was right and I
mm,
didn't know what to do about it. And
yeah.
I couldn't let her run out into the world and, run away. And so I said, right then and there, wait until I give you a signal. When I give you a signal, you call 911. And that happened within 2 weeks. It was a Thursday night. He was in the living room watching Wheel of Fortune. I was in the back of the house taking care of the kids. And he comes walking back. Oh, actually, just before this, I had reached out like to advocacy places, what do you call those? Kind of
Shelters or
coalition, different coalitions. And they had said to me at the time in New York State, you can have a black eye and we can't do anything. But if he kicks you with a shoe, the shoe would constitute a weapon and then we can do something. And that
oh,
was the only time I ever got through to anybody on the phone, like at work. And
mm,
so that just knocked out any hope I had whatsoever. And so
yeah.
now this Thursday night, the boot actually comes into play. He comes walking back. I'm playing with our youngest, who's only 4 at the time. And he just says, have you always been true to me? Like, it's like conversation A. Yeah. Are you sure? Yeah. What do you swear on? Like, and this just kept going back. So then he goes back, and of course, there is alcohol involved because he was an alcoholic. And so, whatever it is, just watching dumb stuff on TV like Jerry Springer and would just amp him up. And eventually, now he comes back and he's mad and he kicks me with the boot. But it didn't stop there. And it was just going back and forth, and it got worse and worse. My daughter had come home from her girlfriend's house, and obviously you can tell because there's a lot of banging going on, and she's like, now, and I went and I looked in the mirror and I only had a little scratch, and so I'm like, no, and I went back in for more. And it ended up happening like 3 times, and then I looked in the mirror and I'm bleeding now. I'm like, call now, and she did. And within moments, the police arrived and They came to the front door, and now it's 11:30 at night. So it's
Mm.
all dark except for the light of the TV.
Yeah.
And he opens the door, and the policeman says, we got a call that there was a disturbance here. Is everything okay? And he sits back on the couch and he looks and he's like, everything's fine. I'm just having a beer with my wife. And he turns, tell him, honey. And I was standing all the way across the room, back to the wall, motion. I could not move. I was frozen.
Mhm.
I could not move. My mouth wouldn't open. I could not talk. And they took the flashlight and they shined it on him and down on the can of beer and back on him and across on me. And now I've got bright red handprints on my throat. I've got blood on my shirt. And then they put it back on him. And they said, come on, you're coming with us.
And you thought,
And
oh
then
my
they
God,
took him.
finally.
Yeah. And then I vowed to those kids I would never take them back again. And I've never broken a promise to them. And so that stuck. And
Good.
then I was just numb. I was completely numb. And the kids and I slept for 2 weeks.
Yes, because there's finally no threat anymore, no constant terror that also works into your nights because you can never really deeply relax because there's always danger lurking.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because he would bust into their bedrooms in the middle of the night and just start shouting at them. So
Hmm.
there was always trauma, all hours of the day, unpredictable, walking on eggshells, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. So then you are gone, he's gone, you're separated, you have three fairly to maybe really traumatized children. What did you do? How did you get you and your children, like our topic is, from victim to victor eventually? What were steps that needed to be taken in between?
Well, luckily for him, he was able to move in to where his relative had an open apartment. So he was able, but it wasn't too far away. So he still expected that he'd still have me and I'd still take him back and everything would be
Yeah,
okay
you did that
because,
always.
God forbid anything gets through the family because everyone's very tight-lipped about everything.
Yeah.
And when he realized I wasn't going to, then he would like play recordings over a telephone on the just do creepy things.
Mm.
And our house was up for sale. We were going to move to like wooded acres, which thank
Oh,
God that didn't
yeah,
happen.
exactly.
So I had pulled the contract, took our house off the market, and then ended up being able to sell it cleanly, and I was able to move cleanly and start a life over again. And the scariest thing is I realized that my kids had no idea who I was
Hmm.
because I was always in a state of panic. They had no idea like my character, my personality, but then I realized neither did I, and that was
Yeah,
really scary. I
I
had no
want to
idea
say,
who I was.
did you know who you were after so
Yeah,
many years
absolutely
ago?
not.
No.
So now I'm 39 and I don't know like what do people my age do? Where do they go? How do they dress? Like I
Yeah,
was
what do
so
they
walled
like?
off from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
I didn't have any idea about, current music, current events. Like very very strange. And it was a so when that separation, when he was arrested, when that happened, it was November. And so now we've got Christmas coming up, and we went to the mall, something I was never allowed to do. And so so the kids and I in the mall, it's Christmas, all the lights are up, and I'm like this, I look like Crocodile Dundee in New York City, and my kids are like, Mom, stop, because
What are you doing?
just didn't get to witness all of this. And
Yeah.
then Christmas Eve, they said, you know what? I don't want to do Christmas the way we've always done it because it was always bad. And actually, what had happened every year on Christmas Eve would be a gathering at his family, and there's whiskey, and oh, it was horrible. Usually, I would have to shovel him in the car and drive home and get all beat up again, and everyone's crying. And so
Mm.
this particular year, I let my kids decide. And so they wanted to do their Christmas, the night on Christmas Eve. And so we did it. And we started new traditions and we started to kind of figure out like, who are you? What do
Yeah.
what kinds of things do you like?
Yeah.
It's terrifying realizing that you don't know who you are and who are these people in your house.
Hmm.
because all I've ever been was a doormat to their father. And
Yes.
so after we moved, it was only a few miles away, and we started all over again, and we rebuilt everything, and started doing things that we liked, and started to form a relationship. And I still needed to, now I had also become an alcoholic, and I made a conscious choice that I remember when we moved, I'm all right, I can still drink. And so I was like a closet alcoholic functioning because I still held down a full-time job. But eventually I got rid of that once and for all. And so I have no vices anymore.
Good.
And I actually got to be available to help my kids in like real ways. And that was the only thing I ever wanted. I wanted to
Hmm.
be there, and I never could. Like, I wasn't, my son asked me, how come you never cooked? I wasn't allowed. I wasn't allowed to do anything. I had to do the prep work, I had to do the dishes. But when it came to cooking and serving, getting the credit, I couldn't. And so being able to cook was like a big deal, and to realize I'm a good cook, and like I don't suck. Like, I'm fun and cool, and
Yeah.
my kids are vibrant. And so now it happened in '08. And so it's been 16 years now, but it took 4 years to start figuring things out. um yeah, I just wasn't good. I wasn't good because I was angry, and I was blaming the world and blaming him. And I didn't have my head on right, and I had never received any kind of therapy or anything. And so I
Hmm.
figured it all out, and eventually built my own business. um
Yeah.
and so, fast forward to today, I learned to envelop. Well, I put on concerts for 10 years for domestic violence awareness. I created a company that was called Love Shouldn't Hurt Incorporated. And I put on these concerts and awareness events, and I was in the news media all the time. And bands would come and donate music. And so for 10 years, 40 something bands on 2 stages for
Oh,
three
that's
days.
beautiful. You
And it was
turned something
amazing.
horrible into
So many
something beautiful.
smiles.
Yeah.
Oh, and we would live stream it around the world. It was awesome. But that was, it's bands and, bars and that kind of an atmosphere. So I eventually got out of there. But when I was doing that, I recognized something. I had gone into the bank one day, and I was talking about the concert and domestic violence, and I saw the teller cringe. Ugh. And then I realized you cannot be slinging those words around. Well, okay, I get it. And so today, what I do today, so I do energy healing and astrology and all this cool stuff, but it envelops, that woundedness,
Hmm.
where you could like detect red flags in charts, and that kind of profiling and all that kind of stuff. And so now I feel that I prevent other people from falling into the same pit that I did by teaching empowerment, because healthy, balanced people don't fall into those circumstances. If I knew who I was and I felt support,
Yeah.
then I wouldn't have lowered my standards for the first person that
You
wants to.
wouldn't have been susceptible to someone sweet talking and bullshitting. You would have felt through it to the dishonesty that was behind it.
Exactly, right.
Yes. And
Yeah.
did you get any help, or did you do everything yourself, figure out everything yourself, heal everything yourself?
I did not get any help. I didn't get any help. And the thing is, even when I was in it, I was too afraid to tell my parents.
Hmm.
If my dad knew what had happened, my dad would have shot him.
Yeah.
But I was too embarrassed to tell
Yeah.
my parents the extent of what was going on. Of
Yeah.
course, over a period of time, they stopped coming around because
Mhm.
you could cut the air with a knife. It was so thick. You can feel when there's fighting and negative, and he
Yeah.
was very pessimistic and negative and controlling and bossing and domineering and all of those kinds of things. And there was nothing they could do. They couldn't sweep in and rescue me out of there.
No, because you need to want to be rescued.
Right. And I never revealed the depth of the abuses.
Exactly. Yes. But that makes you an incredibly strong woman.
I guess so.
Because it's not nothing what you're sharing, and then pulling yourself out without any help from other people, that yeah, is a sign of a very strong person.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my saying is you can't fall off the floor. Once you hit
No,
your rock bottom, you got to do something.
the
And
only
I'm
way is up.
tired of feeling humiliated, embarrassed,
Hmm.
dirty. I didn't know what to do with it. And then, drinking masks the problem, and then hiding it makes it even deeper and darker. And now you close yourself off. You don't want to look at anybody because you feel so guilty.
Yes, yes, exactly. If it's okay, I want to circle back to something that you said both in the beginning and just now. You said something about that this pattern is visible in your chart.
Yes, yeah. It's a little bit complex, but just kind of to broad stroke it. So in our astrology chart, it is a snapshot of where all the planets were as you drew your first breath. And
Mm,
so there are certain signature patterns in the chart that are going to say you're a highly sensitive person, you're an empath, you're a giver. And then there's also very strong signatures about people who are takers. I did study charts of criminals because I needed to know. And
yes,
that's my
if there's a
first
common denominator. Yeah.
Right. And that's when I first tripped upon the terms empath and narcissist. I didn't even know those terms until then.
No.
And that's when I started to study the charts of criminals. And then I looked at my chart. My wedding day was doom and gloom, and it was leading to 20 years, even though we were only married 10, but it was a 20-year period of a loss of power, power, manipulation, control, abuses, and sudden. So yeah, most likely it would have led to my death event. I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it.
Yes.
But I do have to say, it was our daughter, where if it wasn't for her, I
Mm,
would not be here today. If she didn't pull me aside and say it's either him or me, I wouldn't be here. So I have to
mm.
pay homage to her, who at 16, grew that courage to say, you better do something.
Yeah, but that sometimes can be the motivator that was lacking before. And when you have not learned to value yourself, to see yourself as valuable, that you have a worth and that that worth is worth protecting, then you yourself alone is not enough to permanently walk away. But the moment you have children, those children have so much value to you that for them you would do anything, even
Yeah,
face the monster.
right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, completely and totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So in a sense, you sort of helped yourself because you gave birth to the miracle that eventually led to your salvation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the facts.
Yes. And how are your children now? Are they proud?
Wonderful. They're wonderful. So they're each creative. We are all entrepreneurial.
That is awesome.
Yeah. And I think it's so important that as well, here's what happened is as you heal, as I healed, they get to see that. And
Yes.
so it gives them permission to also heal and
Yeah.
not mask things and not pretend everything's okay. Like there's stuff that needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
And so when, I do not like conflict. And my South Node is in Libra. So I was born as a yes person. I don't want to upset the apple cart. And when you are born with that signature, you need to move towards Aries, which is independence, warrior, pioneer. I was terrified to do that stuff. Work, yeah. But when it came to my personal life, absolutely not. And I'm whoever you want me to be because I want to keep the peace. And that simply will not do. And so
Yeah.
as I started to stand in my own leadership and create a name and a business for myself, it gave them permission to also do that. And so
Yeah.
now they do, and we've got a phenomenal relationship.
That is wonderful.
Very, very blessed.
Yes, I can imagine. Oh, this is such an incredibly inspiring story, Susie. Thank you so much for sharing it. Are there maybe some tips that you could give or want to give to people who are in the midst of all of this and
Oh,
don't know
yes.
what to do?
Red flags. Red flags.
Yes.
If your partner is going through your phone more than you, oh, that's a red flag. If they are continuing to heckle you for who you like, for your friends, and then for your family, your interests, the things that give you the color, if they continue to hack away at that, that's a red flag. You should be able to do what it is that brings you joy without somebody else trying to knock it and say it's stupid and get you to like the things that they liked. I
Mhm.
had such a strong grip over me, I wasn't even allowed to have a favorite number. So my favorite number is 3. Well, we were a family of 5. He wanted me to change my favorite number to 5. That's really crazy, the level of control.
Mhm.
If you have your own vehicle and your person wants to drive you and pick you up from work all the time, it might start out, oh, they were trying to do something to help you, but really it's what's going on. Is there anybody I have to worry about? Really, it's never, of course, there's nobody they need to worry about, but it's always a reflection of their deepest fears inside.
Their
And so that
insecurity.
could be a very raw abandonment wound that is coming out and saying, I don't want you doing anything away from under my watch because
Yeah.
really I don't trust what's going on in here.
Yes.
And you definitely watch out for the knight in shining armor, love bombing, and that charm. Like I feel charm is one of them kind of key, almost triggery words. Prince
Mhm.
Charming, turning on the charm, all that kind of stuff, telling you everything that you want to hear. I would kind of like vet them, but I was 16, so you don't know. And he like pretended that he had this prestigious special family. I mean, his father was a factory worker, for a car manufacturer. And I don't know, but I bought into it all. Like, I'm important. I know what I'm talking about. My family this and your family that. And I didn't know. I fell into it hook, line, and sinker. And then also, no one's ever going to believe you, and they're all laughing at you, and all of the things that put you into fear. No one else would ever want you. Nobody else could ever love you the way that I love you. A really thing to avoid too is moving too quickly. Moving too quickly. So when you're not a teen and you suddenly move in with the other person like that, I never advise that. You need to take time developing a relationship and getting to know one another. Go out to eat and see how the person treats the service staff. I mean, that's a big, big indicator. You want somebody who's compassionate, not entitled.
Mhm.
Yeah. If you're kind and sweet and you're giving and you're not healthy, balanced, knowing who you are, you're going to attract the takers. So as
Mhm.
much as you're there offering, there's going to be, it's like a spot of blood in the water and all the sharks come in. But when I know who I am and I figure out, you know what? I like who I am, then you're not going to fall into that. And then on the other side of that, how do you support somebody who is being victimized? Here's what not to do. Oh, I would never let that happen to me. Well,
Mhm.
thanks. Okay, that helps nothing, and it just makes me feel not good more,
Idiot. Yeah.
right? Right.
Yes.
And so most it's such a uncomfortable topic that people
Mhm.
tend to avoid it. Um, is there anything I can do to help you with? Or do you need to talk? You don't have to
Mhm.
be a counselor. Maybe just to be able to somebody to talk to would be
Or do
enough.
you need someone that listens to you?
Right. Yeah. You don't always
Someone that
need
listens to
advice.
your story. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like, does this sound right? This is what's going on. Does that sound right? An outside opinion. But when you get in that deep, you don't have any of that. There's none of that.
What also doesn't help is when they tell you, if I were you, I would do X and X and X and so. And then
Right.
you are missing 90% of the information that would have told you that that is not an option.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I remember once I was going to see his sister for something or other, and I had scratches all over my face, and she saw it. She's like, "You got to do something." Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's good because I tended to think you can't see, because I would get in worse trouble if I didn't have enough makeup on to cover up everything.
Mm-hmm.
And did anyone see that? Did anyone say anything? That constant interrogation. So it actually, I feel, is more helpful to know that somebody saw, because maybe they'll help me, but that's not the way it's going to work. I needed to help me and I didn't know how.
Yeah.
I was so far gone that there was a morning that I actually considered driving off the overpass, going
Mm-hmm.
to work. And then what stopped me is, how dare you? You can't leave those kids with that monster.
That's it
That's why
again.
I didn't do it. But
Yeah.
at the same, and I would pray, and it's like, I don't know. It's like, what am I doing? What am I doing wrong to get what I was getting? And that's not something anybody could have answered. What was missing is I was hollow inside. I needed to value
Well,
myself.
I don't know if you've already reached this stage, but what I eventually discovered is it's not that you did something wrong, or it's also not that you deserved this.
Right.
It's more that you're meant to walk a certain path with certain experiences because you're meant to learn certain lessons, that the combination of it all will allow you to fulfill the role, the mission, the purpose that you have with your life here on this planet.
Exactly. Exactly. And, it's taken a long time to get to that point. But when I can talk about it and not melt down and not go there, I know that I've licked it. And it took me 9 years to reach forgiveness. Um, Even though I was going through the motions, I forgive. There's tension. Okay, no, you don't. Because how do you condone, rape? How do you condone sodomy? How do you condone, how you can't. But if you don't forgive, you are carrying those heavy chains around. You got to cut them.
I struggled with forgiveness for a very long time because somewhere my brain had made the connection that forgiving someone means saying, it's okay what you did, or it's no longer bad what you did, or you're released from your burden of the thing that you did to me. But
Exactly.
forgiveness is not saying, oh, it's okay what you did, or I am okay with what you did, or there are no longer bad feelings between us. That is not what forgiveness about is about. The forgiveness in the end is your decision to think, I no longer want to be mad at you. I no longer want to be miserable because of you. I no longer want to give you any type of hold over me. So I forgive in order to release the energetic noose that you have around my neck because I'm done with you.
Yes, yes, so well spoken. That's exactly it. I didn't want to carry those chains of burden or those chains of bondage. I don't want to carry those anymore. And
No.
so when you're forgiving for you. You're not
Yes.
forgiving for them because they have their own karmic wheel. And
Yes.
that's none of my business. They've made,
And,
oh, let me also add, they made those choices. When somebody is saying, you made me react this way, no, you didn't. They
no.
are choosing to behave that way.
Yes.
That was a love tap, or that was an accident. I didn't mean to slap you. Okay, how do you slap somebody by mistake? Right?
Yeah, repeatedly.
It's right. Yeah. It's not a reaction. No, it's not. It was a choice. It was a choice. And
Yeah.
so when you can put that into perspective and realize all of those nasty things or reactive behavior, that was not your doing. You didn't ask for it. You didn't
No.
poke and prod until they reacted and said, no, 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 no. No, it's all a play. It's a mental game that they actually enjoy. And so when you take yourself out of the game, first they want to rattle your cage. And when you finally make that break, never look back, never look back. And so you want to forgive because they made those choices. They have created their own karma. And I am making better, healthy choices, learning about self care and self love so
Hmm.
that I can raise my torch to help light the way for others who maybe are still in the dark or in the fog,
Yes.
knowing you don't have to stay in that. I
Yes.
want you to, you can use my story as an example or whatever it is, but you value yourself. And if you need help, I'll help you to reach that self-empowerment and understand that you are the same stuff as the puppies and the babies and the kitties. Like, you are that. When a baby is born, they say, oh, the miracle of life. Well, you're still that person. If you have to treat yourself as that miracle, and so do the people in your circles, or else they don't belong in your circle.
Yes, exactly. You are absolutely right. And uh, part of that is also forgiving yourself.
Yeah,
Forgiving yourself for ending up in this situation, forgiving yourself for not being able to leave sooner permanently, forgiving yourself for, well, everything that happened and your part in it. In the
right.
end, that is also very important to further release the energies and the negativities to free yourself so that you can, well, turn a new page.
Right. Yeah. Because there's so much guilt and shame in there.
Yeah.
Because, if I want to circle around and look at it differently, my children's life was destroyed. And
Yes.
so I have to own partial allowance to that. And you can't tell somebody something before they're ready. And there's stigma involved too. Like, I've heard people say she must have done something to deserve that.
Mm-hmm.
Me? What? um, and so uh lost my train of thought there. It wasn't about forgiveness, it was about
She must have done something to deserve that. That was the
deserve
question.
that. And carrying on, getting through. I completely lost my train of thought on that.
Maybe it will pop in later, but
Yeah, yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah. Sorry about that.
so it's the entire process that is very important. Getting yourself free from someone, not only physically, but also mentally, energetically,
Yeah,
emotionally.
that's what it was. Self-forgiveness. When somebody had said, you have to understand, in different words, you have to understand that it takes two.
Yeah.
So there was a level of agreement there. Well, at that time, I was still angry and still in denial. I
Hmm.
didn't ask, to get
Yeah.
those things.
Nobody told this.
But then eventually it settled into my head. And that was the toughest pill for me to swallow, is my ownership to it. And how I was able to do that is by understanding the lack of love I had inside.
Hmm.
Because healthy, balanced people wouldn't have gotten in that situation. It doesn't mean I'm broken, but to be able to forgive myself because I'm here for me now. I wasn't there for me then because I didn't know how to be, but I am now. And I do take ownership, but I'm not going to let the anger or shame, any of that. I cannot let that haunt me any longer.
No,
For anyone else to try to hold that over my head, that's not yours to do.
no,
Right.
no.
So I've forgiven myself. My kids have said to me that they forgive me, which is huge too.
Yeah.
And it's huge. It's a realization. It raises your like your altitude. And so knowing, because some of us will never have that. Some of us still carry that, blaming your parents for whatever happened to you. That's not going to get you very far, and you're not going to be able to heal if you're still holding your parents as the reason for your own traumas. But
Yes.
you chose those souls because you signed up for particular lessons, as you mentioned earlier. So I
Yeah.
signed up. Here's something to add to that. So when I turned 50, I found out that my father was not my biological father, and that my biological father molested his own daughter, which would have been me. So I definitely signed up for something in this lifetime that has to do with abuse or incest or domestic violence, sexual assault. I signed up for it somewhere, but I really strongly feel, because I've broken through it and done the inner work, and now I teach it, that is who I came in this lifetime to be. But
Exactly.
so
That's
many
what I meant.
times we'll complete that lifetime and not stand up for ourselves. So you don't get away. You can't escape that. That means in the next lifetime, it's going to be even deeper. So
Yes.
you have to live,
Eventually, someone needs to solve it, needs to heal it, needs to release it,
and
so
it
that
needs to
it
be the
doesn't come
soul.
back in every new generation or every new reincarnation. Yes.
Right. So I know that that generational trauma and abuse ends with me. And that feels so empowering and
I
so strong.
know. I'm also doing that work. So with me, it
Yeah.
also ends. And what also really touches me is that I know that the work that I'm doing is also helping the family members I have that live now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. To support them and
Yeah,
help one understand oneself. There's no greater gift than to dive into like your own astrology chart, the human design. I mean, that's what it's there for. Who doesn't
exactly.
want to help understand themselves on a deeper? It's the coolest thing ever. But I used to
Yeah,
be quite avoidant. And the reason is because I didn't know who I was.
yes.
There's so many solutions and
That's
wonderful
why I work with
support.
human design and the gene keys. Exactly. It's the combined. They are the things that gave me all the answers to all the questions I ever had.
It's fabulous. It's a beautiful system.
Yes. Oh, I've loved our conversation, Susie. Thank you so much for being so open and so wonderful. And I can imagine if you've been listening, if you've been watching, that this has touched you in some way. So we would love to hear from you. If you want to share your story, the more we share our story, the more we heal it already, and the more other people read about it, the more they feel, oh, I'm not alone, and there are more people going through something like this. So it would be really valuable if you would share your story, or maybe share your biggest insight of today, or maybe you have a question, and leave it in the comments and we will respond to it. But I can also imagine that you think, well, I feel so drawn to Susie and her work. Oh, how can I contact you? Where can I find you? So where can people find you, Susie?
Excellent. It would be my website, which is suzy-woo.com, and I have to spell it SUZY-WOO.com. And I have a favorite tagline that I coined way back when I left and stayed left is find yourself, love yourself, be yourself, and be proud.
I love that. I think that is the perfect note to end this talk today. Um, Thank you for being here. Thank you also for watching, for listening, for always tuning in and supporting this channel. I wish all of us an amazing rest of our day, and I love to inspire you all again with another beautiful guest in next week's episode. For now, bye bye.
Thank you.